Hello everyone, and today we are back on TNO, and the Germany we're going to be playing as is going to be Heydrich Germany. And as for our goal for today, it will be to save the world from Himmler, who basically wants to nuke the entire world and build it back up in his image, in which we are going to try to prevent it. But not anything else, because what will happen is that the tree will basically change when we pick our successor. And whoever we pick will basically decide the Germany we'll be playing as in this run, which will be Heydrich, who's going to be in charge, and who is also leader of the SS in Germany, but not Burgundy because they technically broke off, and currently doing their own thing right now. And after we're done picking our successor, we'll be given a new tree, which is focused on preparing for the German Civil War when Hitler dies. Because you see, the reason why is that his age is catching up with him. It's 1962 and around that time he's gonna die. And after that, Germany will basically implode. But to be fair, considering what he was taking in the real world and suffering with, I don't think it helped with his, well, health in the long term. Especially in TNO's timeline where he's significantly much older. Another thing to mention is that both his death and the Civil War is inevitable. Meaning that our goal will basically be to prepare for the upcoming Civil War, so that we can fight for the control over Germany. So to start off, we need to increase our influence by doing some of these focuses and also clicking on this decision, and then clicking on this option, which will increase our support. There's also two things I need to mention about the influence. Which first, we can spend it on some fortifications, guns and also extra divisions. But remember, the lower your influence is, this will cause this national spirit to change, giving you negative debuffs, but if your influence is high enough, then what will happen is that it will change and instead grant you buffs instead. Also, during the Civil War, the only way you can gain more influence is if you take over more parts of Germany, which makes you look like the more legitimate successor for the Reich. Not only that, but whoever you picked as leader at the start of the game, by either you or the AI, will basically get this national spirit, which is not the best, but it will at least give you some bonuses. Now, before the Civil War starts, you have two proxy wars, which are for Dominica and Madagascar, which I'll make it quick because, well, they're not really important if you're doing Heydrich's run. I ain't gonna spoil it why, but you'll see by the end of this video. So first, we have Dominica, which is backed by you and also Iberia. And to win it is basically simple, just prevent the rebels from taking over Dominica. Then as for Madagascar, it's very simple, just send volunteers and win against the Japanese. Because what happens is that Madagascar will have a massive uprising in which you take over the colony from France, and if you win it then you keep the colony for yourself. Also, I think it's important that you need to have more influence than the French, which you can see right here, but I don't think it's important. Because I'm pretty sure that France doesn't have any decisions that can influence it, so as long as you have high enough influence, then I think that secures your position over Madagascar. But to be fair, I never actually seen France win this proxy war and actually keep Madagascar, so I'm not sure about that, if it's because maybe they can never get high enough influence over you because they have no content. Or even if it's possible for them to even get Madagascar back. Anyway, I should move on, I'm starting to lose track now. Now, when the Civil War kicks off, I recommend that you stay on defense at the start. And the reason why is because Heydrich Germany is by far the most hardest to play, because you don't have many divisions and they're not fully equipped. Also, some divisions spawn in East Prussia, which means that they'll be cut off. Which I thought you could delete them so you can at least get some extra equipment, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So instead of just wasting them, I pulled them back from the extended front line because they won't be able to hold it, and instead put it so that they hold Königsberg. Basically, their job is to survive, while the actual army in the west wins the civil war. But at least they'll make good distractions by pulling enemies away from the front line. Another thing to mention is that before the civil war starts, you can spend 200 political power to have the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia to join your side. But however, because they have limited divisions, they're not really good in helping, but however they can also help by distracting the enemy from fighting you. Now, during the Civil War, when it starts, you'll be given 3 focus trees, and I recommend that you go down the furthest one to the left. And what it will do is that it will request for Burgundian support, which I recommend you do because their tree is absolutely busted. Because not only do you get lots of equipment and massive buffs from Burgundian command, which will help out a lot in making the Civil War 10 times easier to win. Oh yeah, another thing I should mention is that if you go to Burgundy and you click on their focus tree, you can actually see that they have a small tree which is dedicated in helping you out, but only after they win their war with France, which will pretty much just take literally a minute, so you don't have to worry about anything. And finally, the last thing to mention is that if you start doing very well in the Civil War, where it looks like you're about to win, then what will happen is that whoever's left will basically form an anti-Heydrich coalition to team up against you. So for example, in this game, because it was only Albert Speer and Bormann, they basically formed a coalition, which means that they will now fight me. But however, it doesn't actually matter because at this point in the Civil War, you're basically very powerful and just unstoppable. And then, after beating all factions, you have effectively reunited Germany, for now. Now that Germany is reunified, we can now start on the first post-war focus tree, which is nothing special, it's just waiting for new orders while giving equipment back to them. But I'm sure that they ain't gonna use the equipment for anything else, like what they gonna do, attack you? So, as new orders come in, you are ordered to build nuclear bunkers and to also increase nuclear weapons production. However, as you complete these focuses, you do not click on this, or any of them to be exact, because these are massive red herrings that mean nothing, because if you click on them, the decisions do nothing and they will only just waste your political power, which you need it much more for something else that will be very important later on. So for now, all you can do is just click on the focuses as normal, just as long as you don't click on any of the decisions. Now, the reason why is that this entire focus tree will disappear because Heydrich thinks that the current plan that was given to him as ordered just before is basically insane. So because of that, he basically betrays Himmler, which then causes Germany to break up into different warlord states, you can say, which then caused the Second Civil War to kick off, which is also known as the SS Civil War. Okay, so Germany has collapsed once again, and now it's gonna be time to pick up all the pieces and glue it back together. So with that, you'll be given a new focus tree, which is real this time, and a UI that you can interact with. Now, moving on, we have the main feature, which is the Missile Control UI, which shows which missiles do you have control and which ones do you not. And as for the goal is to have majority of these missiles under your control. This will then cause you to have a final confrontation with Himmler to put an end to his plans of nuking the world. However, don't have Himmler have more missiles than you by the end after he gobbles up all the states. Otherwise, this will cause a nuclear war ending, which will basically just end your game, giving you the bad ending. So it will probably be in the best interest for you to avoid that. And finally, after all of that, we can now move on to the main bit, which is the focus tree itself. As you can see, there are three main paths. So first we have the far right path, which allows you to conduct foreign diplomacy to gather other countries outside of Germany to join you in your fight. And then over here we have the far left path, which is more about securing loyalty and assembling a united front, so you can get buffs on your national spirits. And finally we have the centre path. Now this path is very simple, it's all about influence and invading other German states that broke away. But however, I must warn you, Burgundy can do the exact same thing, influencing and also invading other German states. So I recommend that you focus on the states that have nuclear weapons, which is the missiles. Because like I said before, you need to have majority of them under your control to survive. Another thing I should probably mention is that if you have the option, try to invade them. Because remember, you have a limited amount of political power, which yes, you do have a lot of. However, you also need to spend that on many different German states to join your side. Also, not only should you focus on the states that have nuclear missiles, but also focus on the ones that align to you. Because there will be some other states that won't align to you and they will side with Himmler, even if you do try to influence them. Also, don't try to take over states that are near Burgundy, because oftentimes they get invaded by, well, Burgundy. So what you should probably do is just focus on the states that are far away from them. So now it's time to, well, reunify Germany once again. And don't worry, I'll make sure that you'll be able to read the text in the end.